Welcome, the Lord's chosen. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding the illusion. And that's when the illusion panics. There's a certain kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from power. You can always tell when the chosen have entered that phase. They stop explaining, stop defending, stop dancing around the chaos, and instead, they just watch. And that's when everything starts to shake. Because observation isn't passive, it's exposure. Every hidden intention, every manipulative play, every energy-leaching smile suddenly stands naked under your awareness. Psychologists say most people can't go 10 seconds without trying to control how they're perceived. Now imagine the chaos in someone's mind when you just observe them without flinching, without reacting, without giving them the emotional feedback they depend on. It's like pulling the plug on a power-hungry machine and watching it spark in confusion. They're used to people reacting, arguing, explaining, not sitting back with that calm, I see you energy that makes their every tactic feel like a bad performance. And the best part? Your observation doesn't need applause. It's not dramatic. You don't have to say a word. You just sit there, watching them try to play chess while realizing, too late, you stopped playing the game 3 moves ago. That's when it hits them. The chosen ones aren't quiet because they're clueless. They're quiet because they've already solved the puzzle. Let's talk about why your ability to sit back and observe their tactics is intimidating them so much, and why their discomfort is actually the sound of your evolution. Number 1, observation is the predator's worst mirror. When you start observing instead of reacting, something powerful happens. You flip the script completely. People who thrive on manipulation, gossip, and chaos rely on others to stay blind and impulsive. They operate best when their target is emotional, confused, or desperate to prove a point. But when you simply watch them, without feeding into the show, it throws them off balance in ways they can't hide. It's like you've suddenly become a mirror, one they didn't ask to look into, but now can't escape. Observation exposes what their confidence was hiding. Every move, every fake smile, every carefully rehearsed performance starts to reveal cracks. Because control only works when it's invisible. The second it's seen, it loses power. When you're calm and present, just taking mental notes instead of reacting, they begin to sense it. Their rhythm breaks. Their tone changes. They repeat themselves, trying to find footing that isn't there anymore. Deep down, they realize their tricks don't land on you the way they used to. And that realization quietly terrifies them. The reason it shakes them is simple. You've taken away their favorite illusion, dominance. They thought they were pulling strings, but now they feel watched, evaluated, understood. And people who manipulate can't stand being understood because their whole advantage depends on confusion. Your observation cornered them without confrontation. It told them, I see what you're doing, without you ever needing to say it. That's why observation isn't weakness. It's silent authority. It's control without control. When you watch from awareness instead of ego, you're not giving them energy. You're reclaiming it. And what unsettles them most isn't what you say or do, but the realization that their power evaporates the moment your eyes truly see. Observation doesn't expose you, it exposes them. Number 2, they fear the stillness that measures them. Your calmness unsettles people who rely on chaos. They don't understand it, and worse, they can't manipulate it. When you're still, you become a kind of mirror that reflects their own instability back at them. Most people are addicted to reaction. They speak, they provoke, they perform, all to pull something out of you. When you don't give them that reaction, it's like cutting off their supply. Your stillness becomes a quiet test they never prepared for, and deep down, they know they're failing it. Stillness isn't weakness. It's awareness under control. It's the ability to see clearly without letting emotion take over. When you stay composed while someone tries to get under your skin, it silently measures their depth. And often they realize there's not much there beyond noise and insecurity. They start to feel smaller, not because you're trying to shrink them, but because your calm exposes how shallow their tactics really are. It's not arrogance, it's energy discipline. You're no longer reacting out of impulse. You're responding from understanding. The reason your stillness intimidates them is because it shows hierarchy without words. Energy recognizes energy, and when yours stays grounded while theirs wobbles, they feel it instantly. They can't compete with someone who no longer needs to prove anything. You stopped chasing validation, so their approval lost its currency. You stopped arguing for truth, so their lies echo unanswered. That absence of reaction makes them uncomfortable because it forces them to sit with themselves, and many can't stand the sound of their own silence. Your calm is the measuring stick they didn't expect. It reveals who has inner control and who's still pretending to have it. They fear it not because you're stronger, but because your peace highlights their dependence on conflict. In a world addicted to noise, your stillness becomes proof of power they can't touch or imitate. Number 3. Awareness is the end of their strategy. The moment you become aware of what someone is doing, their entire game begins to fall apart. Manipulation only works in the dark. It depends on your confusion, your trust, and your emotional blindness. Awareness is like flipping a switch. The same words, the same gestures, the same patterns suddenly reveal their true purpose. What once seemed random now looks deliberate. You start connecting the dots, and that connection alone dismantles the power they thought they had over you. Awareness is quiet but devastating. It doesn't require confrontation. It simply changes how you see. Once you know the pattern, you stop playing along. You stop giving them the emotional energy that kept their tactics alive. You stop reacting to the bait because now you see it for what it is: bait. That shift might look small from the outside, but spiritually and psychologically, it's massive. Their entire control system depends on you staying asleep, believing their version of events, and reacting on cue. The moment you wake up, the performance loses its audience. What unsettles them most is that awareness isn't loud. You don't argue or accuse, you just see. You start choosing your words differently. You stop over-explaining yourself. You start responding slower, or sometimes not at all. And that quiet shift tells them they've lost access to your mind. Awareness makes you immune to their manipulation because now you understand the architecture behind it. They sense it too, that feeling of their influence slipping away without warning. Awareness is their ending because it removes their biggest weapon, your unawareness. Once you see through their moves, there's no more surprise, no more emotional control, no more false guilt. The truth they worked so hard to hide now stands exposed by your clarity. And in that moment, without needing revenge or confrontation, you've already won. Not by destroying them, but by outgrowing the system they depended on. Number 4, silence isn't absence, it's analysis. Your silence speaks a language most people don't understand. To the unaware, it looks like weakness or withdrawal. But in reality, it's the stage of observation, the moment when everything around you starts to reveal its true form. When you go quiet, you're not running away, you're studying. You're letting people talk themselves into truth. You're collecting information, connecting patterns, and seeing who exposes themselves when they think you're not paying attention. Silence gives you a perspective that noise never will. People who rely on manipulation can't stand silence because it leaves them without feedback. They're used to pulling reactions, reading emotions, and steering conversations. When you stop feeding them that energy, they start unraveling. They keep talking, over-explaining, repeating stories, trying to fill the space you've left empty. and in doing so, they reveal everything you need to know. Your quiet becomes a mirror that forces their behavior to stand on its own, and that's when truth starts slipping through the cracks. Silence isn't the absence of power. It's power under control. It's choosing not to respond until you fully understand the game being played. It's noticing who checks on you when you're quiet, and who disappears when you're no longer useful. It's studying tone, timing, and consistency instead of being distracted by charm or performance. Every moment you stay silent, you're gathering data they can't erase. Eventually, your silence becomes unsettling to them because it signals awareness. They can't read your emotions, can't predict your next move, and can't manipulate your reactions. You've turned what they assumed was weakness into strategy. Your quiet isn't empty space. It's the sound of truth organizing itself. And when you finally decide to speak, every word carries the weight of everything you've quietly witnessed. Number 5. You shifted from target to telescope. There was a time when you were the one being watched. Every move analyzed, every reaction tested, every weakness quietly documented by those who wanted control. You were their experiment, their emotional test subject. They wanted to learn how you ticked so they could twist it against you later. But something happened when you woke up. You stopped being the studied and became the one doing the studying. The very people who once dissected your mind are now uncomfortable under the same microscope they built. That shift is subtle but powerful. They can feel it even if you never say a word. Your awareness now observes them the way they once observed you. Their behaviors, once hidden behind charm and manipulation, now look mechanical, predictable, even tired. What they thought were strategies now appear as recycled patterns. You see their intentions before they act, their tone before the trap, their motives behind every concern. It's not paranoia, it's precision. This reversal is a form of spiritual warfare because awareness reverses the polarity of energy. They used to drain you by watching for weakness. Now your calm observation drains them. You've taken back the position of control without aggression. You no longer respond emotionally, and that denial of reaction leaves them restless. Every manipulator craves a confused target. But when the target transforms into a telescope, clear, steady, unshaken, the manipulator loses their source of control. Your vision has become your defense. You're not obsessed with them. You simply understand them. You don't hate them. You've decoded them. That's what unsettles them most, that you no longer operate from pain but from perception. They wanted a victim, not a witness. But a witness who sees everything cannot be deceived. And that's when the balance shifts forever, when the studied becomes the seer. Number 6, your detachment. Disarms emotional weapons. Emotional manipulators don't fight fair, they fight familiar. They learn your triggers, your guilt points, your fears, and your compassion, then use them like buttons to push whenever they want control. Their entire power structure depends on your emotional engagement. The more you react, the more they direct. But the day you stopped reacting, everything changed. Detachment became your quiet weapon. You unplugged from their system, and suddenly all their favorite tricks stopped working. Detachment doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you stopped being controlled through care. You began to see the difference between emotional depth and emotional bait. When someone tried to guilt you, you felt the attempt but didn't absorb it. When they tried to provoke anger, you saw the manipulation beneath the mask. That awareness created a distance, not physical but energetic, that made it impossible for them to use your emotions as weapons against you. They could still perform their tactics, but there was no longer an emotional signal for them to grab onto. This kind of detachment isn't coldness, it's self-mastery. You started responding instead of reacting, and that small shift stripped them of power. They wanted chaos, but you gave them clarity. They wanted outrage, but you offered indifference. To someone who feeds on drama, your peace feels like starvation. They start trying harder, saying more, pressing the same emotional buttons, but none of it lands. Your detachment exposes how dependent they were on your reactions, and that revelation hits them harder than any argument ever could. By no longer being programmable, you reclaimed your inner authority. You no longer operate from guilt, fear, or emotional manipulation. You act from truth, not tension. And once you reach that state, their emotional weapons turn into empty gestures, noisy, predictable, and powerless. Detachment didn't make you heartless, it made you untouchable. Number 7. The more you see, the less they can hide behind masks. Awareness has a way of stripping people bare without confrontation. The moment you begin to truly see, not through emotion but through clarity, everything false starts to crumble. The charm that once dazzled you now feels rehearsed. The compliments that used to disarm you now sound like scripts. You begin to notice the small details: tone, timing, inconsistencies. And those fragments start revealing the truth behind the mask. Observation doesn't just open your eyes, it changes the lighting in the entire room. Suddenly, what looked like confidence is insecurity in costume, and what looked like humility is manipulation in disguise. Manipulators depend on image. Their survival is rooted in keeping up appearances. The good person, the victim, the helper, the leader. These masks only work when you can't see the seams. But once you recognize the pattern behind the persona, the illusion can't function anymore. Every performance begins to look forced. Their words start clashing with their energy. They sense that you're no longer buying it, and that awareness threatens their very identity. When someone builds their sense of power on deception, being seen feels like exposure. The reason observation is so potent is because it removes projection. You no longer fill in the blanks with hope or fantasy. You see facts as they are. That's what truly terrifies them. Not that you caught them lying, but that you no longer need their version of reality to feel stable. You no longer participate in their performance, and without an audience, the actor loses purpose. When you reach that level of sight, masks stop working in your presence. People reveal themselves unintentionally because your energy demands authenticity. It's not that you expose them. They expose themselves. Your perception dissolves the illusion, and their carefully built persona can't survive under the gaze of someone who finally sees without denial. Number 8. They're addicted to being unnoticed. People who drain others for energy can't survive in full view. Their power comes from operating in the background, quietly influencing, manipulating, or extracting emotion while appearing innocent. They build entire personalities around subtlety, pretending to be harmless while feeding on attention, sympathy, or chaos. What keeps them alive isn't strength, it's invisibility. They rely on people not noticing the small drains, the sighs that pull pity, the guilt trips disguised as concern, the constant need for emotional validation that looks like friendship. Being unnoticed protects them from accountability, but once your awareness sharpens, they lose that cover. When you start paying attention to patterns instead of performances, their tactics become painfully obvious. You begin to recognize when they switch tones to fish for sympathy, when they play helpless to control your time, or when they use half-truths to stay relevant in your emotional space. Your perception is like sunlight to them, not because you attack them, but because you simply see them. And for someone addicted to operating in the shadows, being seen feels like suffocation. They start to sense it too. They grow uncomfortable around your calm, your quiet analysis, your lack of reaction. They might accuse you of being distant or cold, but what they really mean is, you're no longer easy to drain. Their attempts to pull energy no longer land because your awareness blocks every silent hook. They can't guilt you without you noticing the pattern. They can't provoke you without you seeing the intent. Your perception becomes their exposure. You don't need to call them out or prove anything. Your consciousness alone is enough to make them uneasy. They depended on blindness, but you turned the light on. And once that light is on, no matter how much they try to hide, the game is over. Their power dissolves not because you fought them, but because you finally saw them. Number 9, you're not ignoring them, you're studying the system. When you step back from people who try to manipulate or control you, they often mistake your distance for disinterest. They think you've given up or moved on. But the truth is far more powerful. You've zoomed out. You've stopped studying individuals and started studying the system that produces them. It's no longer about one toxic person or one manipulative encounter. It's about understanding the structure behind it all, the emotional, social, and spiritual patterns that make control possible in the first place. You stopped reacting to surface behavior because you began to see the deeper mechanism at play. How guilt is used as currency, how attention becomes leverage, how silence gets twisted into punishment. You realized it's not random. It's a system built on emotional dependency. Once you see that framework, you stop playing the role assigned to you. You're not part of their drama anymore. You're observing the machinery that keeps the drama alive. That level of awareness changes everything. They think you're ignoring them, but you're actually collecting data. Not to retaliate, but to understand. You're mapping the psychology of control, how it starts, how it spreads, and how it collapses once awareness enters the room. You're learning what words trigger guilt, what energy provokes reaction, what silence reveals truth. You've turned the emotional battlefield into a research field, and that unnerves anyone who relies on confusion to stay in charge. Your detachment isn't distance, it's mastery. You're no longer trapped in their orbit, circling the same emotional planets. You've moved beyond the pull of their gravity. They can no longer use familiarity to pull you back in, because you've seen the blueprint behind the manipulation. That's what they can't stand, not your absence, but your evolution. You're not running from them. You're decoding them. And once you understand the system, you can't be ruled by it anymore. Number 10, observation. Without emotion is the death of manipulation. Manipulation feeds on emotional reaction. It needs heat, confusion, and attachment to survive. When you used to respond with anger, guilt, or the need to explain yourself, you unknowingly gave manipulators their power source. Every reaction was like a plug keeping their influence alive. But the day you learned to observe without emotion, the entire system short-circuited. Neutrality isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's what happens when you stop fighting for peace and simply become it. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you stopped being controlled through caring. Once you separate feeling from reaction, you start seeing people's intentions with precision. You can tell when someone's concern is actually control. You can sense when flattery has an agenda. You notice how manipulation always carries urgency, guilt, or emotional reward, and you don't take the bait. Your mind watches calmly while your emotions stay centered, and that balance makes you untouchable. Manipulators can't operate in neutrality because it offers no grip. They need friction, the kind that comes from defensiveness, over-explaining, or trying to be understood. But when you stay grounded, every attempt to provoke you falls flat. They try to shame you, you stay silent. They try to guilt trip you, you stay factual. They try to charm you, you stay unimpressed. What once worked effortlessly now feels awkward and exposed to them. That's when they realize the power dynamic has flipped. Their old methods no longer open the same doors. Observation without emotion is their quiet defeat. You're not fighting them. You're just no longer available for the game. You're not validating, defending, or proving. You're simply seeing. And once you reach that level of calm awareness, manipulation dies naturally, not because you destroyed it, but because it has nothing left to attach itself to. You became the observer, not the controlled. Number 11. Your awareness turns their tricks into transparency. Once your awareness expands, deception loses its magic. The tactics that used to confuse you start to look predictable, almost recycled. You notice how the same emotional setups keep reappearing. The same guilt trip wrapped in new words. The same flattery that feels slightly forced. The same sudden crisis that demands your attention. What they once called strategy now feels like a tired performance. The spell breaks because awareness makes everything visible. You can't be fooled by what you've already decoded. Manipulators depend on your unawareness. They thrive when you interpret their actions emotionally instead of logically. But when you wake up, your mind starts tracking patterns instead of stories. You see the rhythm in their behavior. How charm always precedes a request, how arguments always circle back to blame, how they always play both victim and hero depending on what benefits them most. That recognition turns manipulation into transparency. You're no longer interacting with their words, you're reading their intent. The shift is internal but powerful. You don't need to argue or expose them, the truth is already clear. Their tricks start losing flavor because they no longer stimulate your emotions. You've seen behind the curtain, and once you see the mechanism, the illusion can't work anymore. They sense this too, that your awareness has made their tactics see-through. Their confidence wavers, their charm feels strained, and their timing becomes off. It's not that you've changed the game, it's that you've stopped being a participant. Awareness transforms manipulation into information. Instead of being emotionally tangled, you become mentally detached. You can watch a person's entire playbook unfold and feel nothing but clarity. That's what unnerves them most. Not your words, but your knowing. Their once polished moves now look like repetition, and their so-called mystery collapses under the light of your perception. When awareness enters, deception exits. It's as simple as that. Number 12. They're intimidated because you became the mirror they can't lie to. When your awareness deepens, you stop reacting to words and start recognizing energy. You begin to sense what people mean beyond what they say. That kind of perception is rare. And for those who build their lives on image, it's terrifying. They're not afraid of confrontation, they're afraid of reflection. Because when you see through them, you don't just expose their actions, you expose their essence. You reflect the truth they've spent years avoiding. And for someone living behind layers of performance, being seen that clearly feels like standing under a spotlight with nowhere to hide, you became the mirror that doesn't flatter, doesn't bend, and doesn't lie. While others feed their ego or excuse their behavior, your presence silently holds them accountable. You don't have to accuse or explain. Your energy does it for you. They can feel that you know. You've seen behind their confidence, their charm, and their excuses, and that unspoken awareness unsettles them. They start fumbling words, justifying actions, overcompensating, all because your calm honesty exposes every mask they try to wear. Mirrors like you are dangerous to deception because you offer reflection without reaction. You don't fight or judge, you simply reveal. And in that revelation, they're forced to confront parts of themselves they've buried. That's why they either distance themselves or try to discredit you. It's not personal, it's protection. You represent truth, and truth is something liars can't coexist with for long. The real power of being a mirror is that you never have to prove what you see. Your awareness speaks louder than accusation ever could. Those who walk in truth will feel at ease around you. Those who live in illusion will feel exposed. Either way, your clarity commands respect, because you've become what every deceiver fears most, a reflection that tells the truth they can't escape. Number 13. You outgrew the arena they're still performing in. There comes a point when the games people play stop entertaining you. The same arguments, the same manipulations, the same emotional performances that once hooked you now feel small and repetitive. You no longer feel the need to respond or compete, because you've realized the entire setup was built to keep you trapped in reaction mode. They're still in the arena, shouting, showing off, trying to score invisible points. But you've stepped out. You've evolved beyond the noise, and that evolution confuses them. When people depend on conflict for validation, your peace becomes offensive. They mistake your calm for arrogance because they can't understand life without performance. They keep trying to provoke the old version of you, the one who used to argue, defend, or seek closure. But that version no longer exists. You've stopped performing for approval and started valuing energy over attention. That's why they keep replaying old tactics. They're trying to summon a ghost. Outgrowing the arena doesn't mean you've become distant or unfeeling. It means you've matured spiritually and mentally. You see that reaction is currency in small worlds, and silence is power in higher ones. You no longer need to win battles that only prove you've stayed in the same ring. When you stop competing for validation, you step into creation, the space where growth, clarity, and purpose live. The hardest part for them is realizing you're not even angry. You're just uninterested. Their attempts to bait you no longer work because your perspective has shifted too far. You've seen the pattern, learned the lesson, and moved into a new frequency where games can't survive. That's what real evolution looks like, when your peace becomes proof that you've left the performance behind, and the crowd still cheering for conflict can't even comprehend where you went. Number 14. Observation is spiritual sovereignty. True power begins the moment you stop being ruled by reaction. When you can witness everything, the noise, the manipulation, the praise, the criticism, without letting it dictate your state of being, you step into a rare kind of freedom. That is spiritual sovereignty, the ability to stay centered while the world tries to pull you off balance. Observation becomes your throne, and from it you rule your inner world with clarity instead of chaos. When you observe instead of react, you stop being a servant to circumstance. You're no longer dragged by every opinion, every insult, or every emotional wave that others throw your way. You start noticing how much energy people waste trying to provoke responses that mean nothing. You see how drama feeds on attention and how easily peace can be stolen when you forget your own authority. But once you reclaim the seat of awareness, drama loses its grip. It begins to revolve around you instead of through you, not because you control others, but because you finally control yourself. Observation is not detachment from life, it's mastery within it. You experience everything, but you're not consumed by it. You see clearly which situations are lessons and which are traps. You choose when to engage and when to let go. Your silence becomes intentional, your reactions become measured, and your energy stops leaking into pointless battles. That's what sovereignty feels like, not dominance, but direction. The world around you doesn't necessarily change, but your relationship to it does. The noise continues, yet it can't shake your foundation. You no longer need to win arguments or prove your worth. Your calm presence already does that for you. Observation becomes your crown, the sign that you've transcended the illusion of control. You don't chase peace anymore. You are peace, sitting firmly on the throne of your awareness. Conclusion. The chosen ones move through the world differently. Not louder, not faster, not angrier, but with a clarity that cannot be shaken. Every tactic thrown at you, every attempt to manipulate, provoke, or control loses its power the moment you see it clearly. You no longer react, you observe. You no longer participate in their games, you study the patterns. Your calm becomes their confusion. Your awareness becomes their exposure. Your detachment becomes the shield they can't pierce. In sitting back and simply witnessing, you've turned the battlefield into a classroom, the chaos into clarity, and the drama into insight. This is not passivity. This is mastery. This is sovereignty. Every emotional weapon they wield, every mask they hide behind, every shadow they cling to, crumbles in the face of your observation. You've become the mirror they cannot lie to, the telescope that turns their system inside out, the silence that collects evidence without uttering a word. You've transcended the arena entirely, moving beyond reaction into revelation. And in doing so, you demonstrate the ultimate truth. Real power doesn't announce itself. It observes, it understands, and it commands without interference. The world will try to test you, to draw you back into old patterns, but you've already left that playground. You are untouchable not because you dominate, but because you no longer play their game. Every moment of calm, every second of awareness, every choice to watch instead of react is a declaration of your sovereignty. You are the chosen ones, and in your quiet mastery, you don't just survive, you transcend. If this message resonated with you and opened your eyes to the hidden truths around you, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button, share this with someone who needs to see it, and leave a comment to share your experiences. Because awareness grows when we observe and learn together. Stay blessed always.